Hello everyone. Anyway, the mains of 2021 is just over, and everyone is expecting for their UPSC interview call. And in the pandemic time, I think the UPSC conducted mains in a wonderful way, and aspirants also participated in the mains examination with all their efforts and passion. So this is just an analysis of the recent UPSC Civil Service mains examination, and today I'm dealing with the GS paper 3. So I would like to go through the paper analysis in a three-way. A quick introduction into the syllabus of this paper and how to deal with the GS paper 3. Some special tips of GS paper 3 compared with GS 1 and 2. And then we can go to a detailed analysis of the last year's paper. That is the GS paper 3 of the 2021 UPSC Civil Service Mains Examination. So as you know, GS paper 3 carries a marks of 250. And in a broad way, we can divide the syllabus into science and technology, economic development, biodiversity, environment, security, and disaster management. But if you look into the syllabus of the UPSC, which is publishing along with the notification, we can see the detailed syllabus of under each subheading. Like, for example, in the economic development, it is Indian economy, issues relating to planning, mobilization of resources, growth, development, and employment. So similarly, for agriculture, for the environment, for the biodiversity, for the internal security and disaster management, specific subheadings are given in the UPSC syllabus. So if you look into the papers of UPSC mains examination the last 3-4 years, we can see that UPSC is giving focus on each and every topic under this particular syllabus. So we can clearly point out from where the questions has been asked by the UPSC, from where the questions has been framed from the UPSC. So I'm not going to read the entire syllabus because it is almost half page of it, and of course aspirants will be familiar with it. And I always say to the aspirant that whenever you start seriously preparing the UPSC syllabus, you should by heart, you should familiar with the UPSC syllabus, because that's the crux of the preparation, because we should always prepare for the examination. We don't need to read entire things under the sun, but we need to stick to the syllabus of the UPSC. So just familiarize with each and every topic under the UPSC syllabus. Now about the paper 3. Paper 3, comparing with the paper 1, paper 2, or paper 4, the speciality of the paper 3 is it is a dynamic paper. Dynamic paper in the sense that more of the questions are coming from current affairs related things, because in paper 1 it is history and geography. Most of the things are static because we can't change the history, we can't change the geographic principles, etc. And in paper 2 also, polity and governance, even if governance and polity having some link with current affairs, most of the questions might be asked from the static portion only, which is linked to current affairs. But and in the ethics paper, I think it is almost a status quo throughout the year, because there is a very less scope of asking current affairs or other things related to ethics and aptitude. But this paper is mainly focusing on current affairs, because science and technology, environment, the disaster management, everything is revolving around the current affairs topics. And even in topics like economy and internal security, even the static questions has been asked, we can backline those static questions to and tag it to some of the current affair events happened in the last 1 or 2 years. So the paper 3, even if you want to get good marks, you should have a hang on the current affairs of your preparing years. And that's why we are focusing on the importance of reading newspaper and following current affairs. So the next important thing about paper 3 is where a candidate can have maximum number of innovations in answer writing. Because in paper 1 and paper 2, we can tell it as a dry paper, except for the geography where you can add some maps or chart. It is very difficult to put some diagrams in history or in polity. We will try to, the aspirants usually try to force to put some diagrams in these papers. But in the case of paper 3, you will get an ample scope of drawing diagrams and putting innovations. For example, in the economy, you can draw different diagrams, even the pie diagram or a graph or a graphical representation. All those things are possible in the paper 3. So the innovation part or the presentation part of the answer, the candidate will get maximum flexibility in paper 3. So these two things are the specialities of the paper 3 comparing with paper 1, 2 and 4. So with this, we can go to the questions of the 2021. So we will take some quick analysis of the papers because we know that 20 questions are there. UPSC didn't change the pattern of the question. First 10 questions are of 10 mark with 150 words of limit, and next 11 to 20 questions were 15 mark with 250 word limit. So still the old pattern of last 3, 4, 5 years are continued by the UPSC. So each question we can have a quick analysis around 2-3 minutes, and I think that will take around 1 hour of presentation. So we can go to the questions. So this is a GS paper 3 questions. As I said, the first 10 questions are of 10 marks with 150 word limit. And for the aspirants who are looking forward to the preparation of next year's UPSC examinations, this word limit is crucial, space limit is crucial. So whenever you start preparing for mains examination or whenever you start writing mock answers, you should adhere to the word limit and the space limit, because word limit, even though the examiner may not count the number of words that you have written, but the feeling of crowded answers can make some penalty marks for your answer. So it should be in a way that the examiner or the paper evaluator get a feels that you limited the number of number length within around 150 words. So there can be a flexibility, like 150 means you can go up to 175 or 130. Similarly, for 250, you can go up to 300 or 225. That's not an issue. But whenever you start preparing, it is an art and it's a skill to comprehend your answers to the word limit and space limit. That is actually one of the skill that every UPSC aspirant should make during the preparations of the mains answers. So the first question is, explain the difference between computing methodology of India's gross domestic product before the year of 2015 and after the year of 2015. So this is a direct question from a static portion of Indian economy. And each and every aspirant who is studying the basics of Indian economy will know the crux of the answers. It is a direct question. It's an explain question. We will go through the keyword of the question. Here it's an explain the difference. So you can directly go to the answer after an introduction, like what is GDP or what is India's trend in GDP. That's fine. A very small introduction will be fine. And this is a difference because even though it is not directly linked to the current affairs of 2020 to 2022, this is a current affair question of 2015. But this is actually a very fundamental, a basic idea that every candidate should have, how India's gross domestic product is is analyzed, and how what is the methodology of India's gross domestic product. So the question is, find the difference between. So we can have some 3-4 fundamental differences. The candidate can directly go to answer that particular differences, because there is no need to elaborate what is GDP and what are the things, what is the importance of GDP, because these things are not asked. You should stick to what is asked in the question, because this is a 150 word answer. One different was actually the base year change. Previously it was 2004-5 and now it is changed to 2011-12. And then the previous GDP calculation is actually India calculated GDP based on the factor cost. And now, as an international norm, in accordance with the international norm, we changed it to the market price. So that is a fundamental difference, and candidate can introduce or include the equation of calculating GDP between factor cost and the market price also, because that will improve the value of the answer. And another important difference is actually the index of industrial production, IIP. Everyone knows this because we are preparing for the prelims examination, which is used to measure the manufacturing and the trading sector activity. Now, previously IIP was used. Now it is actually the gross value added, GVA, is at basic prices used for GDP. And previously, along with IIP, this ASI, Annual Survey of Industry data, was also used for calculating GDP. Now it was changed to MCA 21 database, where the companies are filing their own data by their own. And this data is used by the central government parties to calculate the GST. So these are the fundamental differences. These 4 differences will cover your answers, and some introduction and final conclusion will cover. This is a very direct question. This is a fundamental question. So there is no technical glitches in this particular question. So it is I would say it is an easy question. Now we can go to the second question. Distinguish between capital budget and revenue budget. Explain the components of both these budgets. Again, this is an Indian economy question. This is a fundamental basic idea and a direct question, a fundamental question. There is again no twist or turns in this particular question. And every aspirant who is preparing for prelims and mains should know the capital budget and revenue budget. What are the components of capital budget and revenue budget? Capital budget means those money which is receiving or spending for the capital assets, and revenue is like for the revenue. So most of the candidates might have studied this using some flow chart or a table. So by delineating the components of capital budget and revenue budget, in capital budget, one side you will get capital expenditure and one side you will get capital receipt. And in revenue budget, you will get revenue expenditure and revenue received. So you have to include this flow chart in the answer and explain the component of both these budgets with some examples. You can complete the answer. But these 2 questions are static question. Every aspirant who is preparing for UPSC examination will write this answer. There is no doubt in that. Those who seriously preparing for UPSC will write. So what a topper or what a person who needs to get an extra mark should focus on these kind of questions. Try to include some innovative answer writing in these questions, because you can add some diagrams, you can add some flow chart, you can use multiple colored pens or pencils for improving the presentation of answers. Because if 1,000 students are writing this exam, all the 1,000 answers will look alike, and the examiner will get bored of this answer. But if your answer stands apart with the same content but with a different presentation, you will get half or 1 mark extra for this question, because the examiner might looking for what is new or what is novel in this particular answer. So these kind of static question, every candidate should try to improve an innovative answer writing method, so that you will get or you will fetch an extra mark. So that's about the second question. And third question is, how did land reform in some parts of the country help to improve the socio-economic conditions of marginal and small farmers? This is actually land reforms is a topic which is explicitly mentioned in GS paper 3 syllabus by the UPSC. And it comes under Indian economy and some link with the post-independent India's polity as well. But since it is explained, it's explicitly mentioned in GS paper 3, we can expect this question here. And I think this question it has some kind of repetition also. Previously also the same kind of or similar line of questions have been asked in mains examination, how the land reforms bettered the life of farmers, etc. So same questions have been repeated here. So here again, it is a direct question. The question is how the land reforms improve the socio-economic conditions of the marginal and small farmers. So those who are writing the answer should focus on what are the components of land reforms. And in some part of country, for example, in Kerala and Bengal, the land reforms were almost success. And that's why Kerala and Bengal, we reap the success of land reform even today. So in some part of the country. So what are the components of land reform? Just mention about these, and then how it improved the socio-economic condition. It is not about how it improved the polity or how it improved the agriculture, but how it improved the socio-economic condition of the marginal farmer. For example, in the components like abolition of intermediaries or tenants, and there is provisions of land sealing and land consolidation. Then there is provision of land distribution. These are the main component of land reforms. And socio-economic condition, like how the income of the farmers improved, how the social status of the marginal and small farmers, especially from the backward community, for example, OBC communities or SC/ST communities, improved over years, how the educational status or how the health status of the farmers or their family improved over years. and how the financial status of the farmers, because whenever we get land, we can use it as a collateral for getting some money from the banks. We can invest further that for the education of their next generation or the health of the next generation or some business. So this is how the socio-economic condition of the farmers improved over years. So that socio-economic condition, that point is the crux of this particular question. So that should be mentioned in the answer. But again, this is a direct question. There is no twist and turns here. But only thing is we need to address to the question only. So otherwise we will spend some time and space for writing what is land reform, what are the polity behind that, what are the disadvantages of land reforms, whether it is a success. These kinds of answers need not be included in your answer, because the question is very straightforward: how land reform in some part of the country improved the socio-economic condition of the marginal and small farmers. Okay. We can go to the next question. The fourth question is again a 10-mark question. How and to what extent would micro irrigation help in solving India's water crisis? This question belongs to agriculture topic, and again micro irrigation is an important part of agriculture syllabus. This is also a direct question from the syllabus. There is no confusion, there is no need of confusion regarding that. But the thing is, how and what extent the micro irrigation helping solving India's water crisis? So the candidate should address that there is a fact that India has some water crisis. So we need to address that, like there are many reports like Niti Aayog's report, etc., saying many part of India will be hotspot for water in the next 10 or 20 years. So India is facing a water crisis. We need to address that part. And second is, how and what extent would micro irrigation help to solve that? So this is an analytical kind of question, and how and what extent. How we can include like micro irrigation will improve the efficiency of water. There are programs like per drop more crop by the Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. So those kind of programs are focusing on micro irrigation and reaps its benefit. And to what extent is the analytical, critical analysis part of this question comes, like whether this is the only panacea for India's water crisis? No. We can use micro irrigation for some extent, but it is not the one and only solution for the water crisis, because we need to include conservation of water, we need to include conservation of forest, we need to include the rainwater management, watershed area management. All those things are also needed there. So only to some extent where the water using for agriculture can be saved by micro irrigation and improve the efficiency, but it is not a single stop solution for India's water crisis. So this should be the flow of the answer for this particular question, because how and to what extent is the question, because it is an analytical part. So you can use it, and a candidate can also use some flow chart or data or report, because that will increase the authenticity of your answers. And also maps can be also used for this. You can draw a map of India and you can point out where the water crisis is very prominent. For example, in Rajasthan area, in the central portion of Madhya Pradesh, and even in the Telangana, Maharashtra area. These areas were very notorious for water crisis, and you can point out these areas are prominent for water crisis. And that actually bring the context of this answer. So that will include as an innovation in the presentation, and also it will get a better impression in the examiner. So that again, this is a very direct question. Micro irrigation is a very fundamental topic, and most of the candidate might know that what is micro irrigation, what are the techniques of micro irrigation. Again, this is actually a repetition of last 2-3 years, like questions have been asked, conservation of water and its methodologies. So again, I think in the upcoming years also, since this is a burning topic for the upcoming years also, such kind of questions can be expected by the aspirants. So now we can go to the question number 5. This is how the S-400 air defense system technically superior to any other system presently available in the world. Out of the first 5 questions, I think this is one of the difficult questions we can face, because even though this comes under science and technology and internal security, this is mainly science and technology, and this is a current affairs related question, because recently there were S-400 were there in news, because Russia is giving us S-400 for our own air defense system. China has got S-400, and initially America, when Trump was the president, America showed some resistance that India is buying against India buying S-400 system, but now it is in a cool off period. So this is a last many, I think for the last 2-3 years, because when I was preparing for UPSC also, S-400 was there as a very catchy topic. So, and it is still there in current affairs. But here the difficult part is how the S-400 air defense system is technically superior to any other system in the world. So they are asking about the technical superiority of S-400, even though the candidate prepares some features of S-400 for the preliminary examination and all. We can't by heart all the technical superiority of S-400, because we can remember the range. We can remember the range of the S-400. We can remember the number of rockets available or the accuracy, but other technical superiority things the candidates may not remember. So that way, this is a pakka technical question, and some difficulty is there, because in the answer key, most of the time the technical features of S-400 might be there, and examiner may also look in your answer for the same technical details. This may not be there for this. All aspirant may not recollect all these technical features of S-400, but you can mention all the technical features that you remember. And also it is like a comparison, like any other system presently available in the world. So you have to mention about the other system available. For example, Israel system, or for US, there is a THAAD system, THAAD missile system is there. So you can compare these other options available in the world also, and you can mention that S-400 is by far the most technically superior air defense system. But even I feel this is difficulty, because we need to recollect all the technical features of S-400, which may be difficult for the candidate. Otherwise, this is a current affairs related question. And next question is question number 6. Explain the purpose of Green Grid initiative launched at the World Leaders Summit of COP26 UN Climate Change Conference in Glasgow in November 2021. When was the idea first floated in the International Solar Alliance, or ISA? When was this idea first floated? Again, this question go 2 parts. First part is obviously everyone was expecting one question related to COP26 UN climate change, because this is a very prominent topic for the prelims or mains or the interview of UPSC, because environment is a very crucial subject. And this UN climate conference happened in Glasgow in 2 months back in November 2021, where our Honorable Prime Minister was also participated, and India submitted some commitment also. So everyone was expecting 1 or 2 questions related to this UN climate change, because it is very prominent topic in current affairs and environment. And here the Green Grid initiative is actually one novel idea that was discussed between the world leaders to promote green energy, like solar energy or wind energy or hydroelectric powers. So the less environmentally damaging, like not the coal or thermal power or nuclear power. This more green energy initiatives were discussed in the same meeting by the global leaders, and the question has been asked for the Green Grid initiative. And I think for Green Grid initiative, most of the aspirant might be prepared well for that. Because green energy has been asking for the last 2-3 years. One year, I think this is related to energy also. So this is environment plus energy. So 1 year, I think 2 years back, they asked about the nuclear energy. Last year, they asked about wind energy. And this year, they are asking for some green grid initiative. So a continued pattern of green energy is there. So aspirants should focus on these kind of questions. And here, the purpose is actually to produce energy from green forms like solar or wind or hydroelectric, then trade between countries to reduce the carbon footprint. That is the main purpose, and it is a 10-mark question, and you need to adjust according to it. But the next part was actually the difficult part. When was this idea first floated in the International Solar Alliance? That's like a very objective type of question, like when this idea was floated. If you know the answer, you can write. If you don't know the answer, you can't bluff. That is the kind of question. So it is a difficult part. It is actually floated in 2018 when in the meeting of International Solar Alliance, which is chaired by India. It is one of the international committees or international organization which is having chair by India. So International Solar Alliance is a very prominent topic among the aspirant, but when was this idea first floated in International Solar Alliance is a difficult part of this question. So again, sometime UPSC can ask very direct questions in paper 3. I still remember 4 years back, some very direct questions like what is a very direct question regarding biotechnology has been asked, and those who know the answer can only write, because we can't bluff anything about a topic that we don't know at all. So this is, again, it was like, when is the question? So if you know the date or if you know the year, you can mention it. Otherwise, you need to skip the answer, because bluffing and writing a very very worse answer will create a bad impression among the examiners. So it is safe to skip also in the second part, because first part, if you address well, you will get good marks. And you can mention something about International Solar Alliance if you want to get a satisfaction. But it is like, when was this idea? If you know only, you need to answer. Otherwise, it is better and safe to skip the answer. So in that sense, the second part of the question was a little bit difficult for the aspirants. Now we can go to the 7th question. Okay. Describe the key points of the revised global air quality guidelines recently released by the World Health Organization, WHO. How are these different from its last update in 2005? What changes in India's National Green Air Program are required to achieve these revised standards? So this is a very long question for a 10 mark, like a 3-part question for a 10 mark. So you need to address one by one. So again, this is environment and also current affairs related, because recently only WHO released a global air quality guideline, which is actually a book kind of thing, and where they have revised this air quality indexes. So again, this is a factual question, which is a direct question. Those who know about the facts can only answer this question. So in that way, this is a moderate difficult level. So because if you don't know the facts, like what is the recent changes in the air quality guidelines by WHO, you can't answer this question. You can write something about air quality index and all, but that won't fetch any mark for you, because the examiner might be looking at the key points of the revised global air quality guidelines. And the key points are like the previously the upper limit of various air quality parameters, like particulate matter 2.5 or 10, or carbon monoxide or ozone or sulfur dioxide or nitrogen dioxide. These were on a higher level, and recently it was edited into a lower level. For example, particulate matter 2.5, previously the annual average was considered to be 10, and now it is reduced to 5. And 24-hour 2.5 PM 2.5 was considered as 25. Now it is reduced to 15. And this is the kind of revision that happened. So only if you know the data, you can answer this question. But if you are answering this question, please follow the chronological order of this question. First, describe the key point of the global air quality guideline. And second part is address how these are different. There is actually in newspaper, when this guideline was released, there was a tabular column which is comparing the previous one, that is 2005 guideline, and the recent guideline. So that is what is expecting in the second part. That is how it is different. And the third part is actually comparably easy, because India's National Clean Air Program is still using some other parameters. So we need to align to the international standard to get into the revised guidelines of WHO. And that is what this answer is required. Again, I consider this is a moderate difficulty, because those who can memorize data only reproduce this answer. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to get good marks for this question. Now we can go to question number 8. Discuss about the vulnerability of India to earthquake-related hazards. Give examples including the salient features of major disasters caused by the earthquakes in different parts of India during the last 3 decades. This is again a very direct question coming from disaster management section. And those who read disaster management topics in NCERT can answer this question very easily. There is no need of further reference. NCERT beautifully explained about India's earthquake vulnerability, earthquake related hazards, and also the salient features of it. And also NCERT gave some example about the major earthquakes of last 3 decades. For example, in Gujarat or in Latur, or earthquakes in Northeast. These things are there in NCERT. So those aspirants who are following NCERT can beautifully write the answer towards this. And also, even if you don't read NCERT and following some other books for disaster management, of course, you can write the answer. Here, you can draw a map of India and you can show the earthquake zone, zone 1, 2, 3, like that, differentiate which part of the India is more prone to earthquake. So those zonal categorization can be done. And also, the thing is, salient features and major disaster caused by, you have to specifically mention about the examples of earthquake that happened in the last 3 decades. So again, this is a very direct question about the disaster management topic. NCERT topics will be suffice for giving an answer for this. Okay. So that question number 8 is a very direct question from disaster management. Again, it's a simple question because different parts are there, but it is simple to address and it's a 10-mark question. Now we can go to the next question, question number 9. Discuss how emerging technologies and globalization contribute to money laundering. Elaborate measures to tackle the problem of money laundering, both at national and international level. Again, this is a question belong to this internal security, and those who are preparing for internal security from some standard material know that money laundering is a very important topic for internal security. And the question is like 2 parts are there. One is how emerging technology and globalization contribute to money laundering. And here, you can start with the definition of money laundering. And in money laundering, there are 3 important stages. First one is placement of the money, and second thing is layering of the money, and third is the integration into the pipeline. So this is the 3 stages of money laundering, and it is I believe that it is better to discuss the first part in this 3 stages. Like what are how the emerging technology and globalization improve or contribute for placement of the money and layering of the money, and then thirdly the integration of the money. For example, when there is globalization, the entire world is a market. The shell companies, the tax havens are very prominent these days. So that is a beautiful example of how globalization contribute to money laundering. Emerging technology like bitcoins or blockchain technologies is actually causing contributing towards money laundering. So it is it is better to categorize the answer like into these are the 3 stages of money laundering, and these are the emerging technologies and globalization impacts for these 3 stages. And second part is actually the elaborate measures to tackle the problem of money laundering, both at national and international level. Those who are preparing for internal security, of course, they will have a short answer for this. What are the measures by the government of India is taken at national level, and international level we are having agreements with various countries for exchanging data and all, and international platforms are there for money laundering. And even recently Pakistan is put into grey list and blacklist and all those kind of things are there. So these are all already existing topics in the among the UPSC aspirant circle. So the second part is a very direct question, and first part is emerging technology and globalization. A structuring of answers is needed. I think these 3 stages and their structuring will be better. Question number 10. Keeping in view India's internal security, analyze the impact of cross-border cyber attacks. Also discuss defensive measures against these sophisticated attacks. Again, this is a direct question from the internal security. Cyber terrorism and cyber attacks is a favorite topic these days because of the current affairs related, and also in any standard textbooks you will get the topics related to cyber attack. And keeping in view of India's internal security, analyze the impact of cross-border cyber attacks. So the question is analyze the impact. Impact means how it is affecting our security, how it is affecting our economy, how it is affecting our energy management, because recently some attacks happened to the Kudankulam nuclear power plant, and its functions were disrupted for some time. So it is an energies is also it's affecting. How it is affecting the privacy of the people, because if they are looting our personal data from health repository or something, it is actually, or Aadhaar repository, it is actually going to the privacy issue also. So these are the impacts. So diversify the points of these impacts
like cross-border cyber attack, and write the first part. And second part is again also discuss the defensive measures against these sophisticated attacks. Again categorize into, because from the Indian government at the top level itself, we have policies and guidelines for a cyber attack. We have institutions, for example, there is a task force, and also we have institutions like CERT-in. And every state will have nowadays having cyber the police wing dealing with cyber attacks. So, and every major offices is actually having their own cyber wings to protect their own infrastructure. And there is some technological advancement also in our recent past that enable any firm or any system to put defensive mechanism against cyber attack. So again, this is a direct question. Those who are going through the standard textbooks and standard material and current affairs can answer this question very beautifully. So these are the 10 questions, first 10 questions of 10 marks, the half of the questions. So I think most of the questions are direct questions from the syllabus only, and 1 or 2 questions are the difficulty level towards the high. For example, that S400 question, and also about the green grid, second part of the green grid initiative and the air quality index. Even though these are direct questions and current affairs linked, but data is needed, and those who can memorize data will get very good marks for those questions, because those aspirants who can't mug up data, I think they will suffer in those 2 or 3 questions. Now we can go to the second part of the question paper, the question 11. 15 mark question, 250 is the word limit. Do you agree that Indian economy has recently experienced V-shaped recovery? Give reasons in support of your answer. This is a do you agree question. So it depends upon the candidate's arguments whether India is experiencing a V-shaped recovery in the economy or not. You can go with either way. Either you can go with yes or no. But the thing is, you have to support your answer. This is an economy question. This is a direct question and a current affair linked question. Because recently there was one report from the Reserve Bank of India where they have specifically mentioned that India is facing V-shaped recovery. Again, it is a disputed report, because many experts are saying that India is not facing V-shaped. India is facing U-shaped or W-shaped. Different shapes are there. And I think most of the candidates might know these shapes for their preliminary examination preparation. So this question is actually, I think, based on this RBI report. Do you agree that there is a V-shape? V-shape means we were going in a somewhat in a moderately good way. Then there is a sudden glitch in the economic growth, that is GDP suddenly fell down and then suddenly raised back. So that is a V-shape, and India might be following, but whether it is V-shaped, we yet to see in the upcoming financial years. So that is the question, and here the aspirant can use some diagrams like what is a V-shaped recovery, how it looks like, and they can also use data. Because before the pandemic, India's economies was going at around 7-8% per annum, and it went down to a negative growth during the pandemic, and now it is coming back, and the projections were that India will go to a double-digit growth. So it is like a V shape. So a candidate can use these data, candidates can use the diagrams, and for the reasons to support your answer. And also they can mention the RBI report, because this is a report from the government side itself, which is having valid reasons behind the RBI report, because experts have prepared this. So the thing is, those who can disagree with the statement can also write that, but only thing is you need to support your answers with your valid arguments. So again, this is a direct question, current affairs linked question from Indian economy. And now to question number 12. Investment in infrastructure is essential for more rapid and inclusive economic growth. Discuss in the light of India's experience. The key word is discuss in the light of India's experience. Investment in infrastructure. Infrastructure and investment both are actually topics in the GS paper 3 syllabus. So questions are expected from infrastructure and investment, and questions have been asked for the last 3-4 years regarding infrastructure and various investments in infrastructure. So here it is, investment in infrastructure is essential for more rapid and inclusive growth. Means a rapid growth, how it is happening, like and inclusive growth. So you have to mention about what is an inclusive growth and what are the components of an inclusive growth. And you can mention about various infrastructure. It is not just about the the physical infrastructure like a road or rail or airport or something like that, but you can mention about the social infrastructure like schools or hospitals or drinking water or sanitation, waste management. So these are social infrastructure for rapid this is how actually for inclusive growth. Social infrastructure is very crucial for inclusive growth because everyone is getting education, everyone is getting healthcare. So that is there. And also you can mention about the digital infrastructure also, like how India is getting connected each other, like 5G technology is coming, 4G is already rolled out in India, and we are having digital payment system very frequent in India. So this digital infrastructure is also there. So you have to categorize this answer into these 3-4 topics like social infrastructure, physical infrastructure, digital infrastructure, and even I think you can mention about the human resources also. So and you have to connect these infrastructure to rapid and inclusive economic growth, and you have to give some good examples from India. That's why discuss in the light of India's experience, like how some of these infrastructure improved the inclusive growth. For example, everyone can mention about the healthcare system in Kerala or the education system in Kerala, where it happened to cause the inclusive economic growth of the people. So again, this is a direct question from the economy, Indian investment and infrastructure. Now we can go to the next question, question number 13. What are the salient features of National Food Security Act 2013? How has the Food Security Bill helped in eliminating hunger and malnutrition in India? So again, it's a two-part question. Food security is actually a topic in GS paper 3 syllabus. Again, so it is a direct question from food security. And everybody who prepares for UPSC know what is National Food Security Act and their salient features. So it is a very direct question. Everyone can mention what are the salient features of National Food Security Act 2013. So last 6 years it was there. At least in prelims or mains, one question will come regarding this. I think last 2-3 years also 1 or 2 questions are asking in prelims also. The second question, how has Food Security Bill helped in eliminating hunger and malnutrition in India? So first, for the second part of the question, we have to put a context that India has hunger and malnutrition. There are many reports like a malnutrition status of India, the stunting, wasting, anemia among children. So these are very prominent stats, and even the Honorable Prime Minister is personally looking for reducing this malnutrition in children and giving dedicated target for reducing year by year. So how the Food Security Bill helped in eliminating hunger and malnutrition? You have to mention about what are the features in Food Security Bill, especially looking for women and children also, because in the recent Food Security Bill, specific provisions are there for women and children to improve their nutrition and how they are going to eliminate hunger and malnutrition. So that is the crux of the second part of the question. So build a context that India has hunger and malnutrition and mention about the provisions in the Food Security Bill, recent Food Security Bill, and how it is going to help to reduce the hunger and malnutrition. Again, it's a direct question, current affairs linked. Question number 14, what are the present challenges before crop diversification? How do emerging technologies provide an opportunity for crop diversification? This is from agriculture, some link with science and technology also. So crop diversification is a very prominent topic. So questions are expected from crop diversification. So here it is a two-part question. First one is the present challenges before crop diversification. Challenges are starting from policy level, because recently the tussle between the government and the farmers regarding the farm bills, where the crop diversification provisions were there. So from the policy level itself, challenges are there. Then the economic challenges, for example, MSP is a challenge because farmers are only cultivating the products which having MSP, because that is the assurance that they will get money and they won't cultivate any other product. So that is another important thing. Cultural practices are there. Some farmers might be cultivating some rice or wheat or sugarcane for last 50 or 60 years. So they are very reluctant to change their crops to some others. So this is there. Then input cost is there. Some crops are, for example, fertilizer cost, etc. are there, and which is cheap for some crops, but which is too expensive for the others. So the input cost may decide the crop diversification. Climate change is another important. So these are the main challenges you can mention, like which is a very direct question. What are the present challenges? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can do maximum number of points. And how do emerging technologies provide an opportunity for crop diversification? Here you have to diversify the emerging technology. From space technology to biotechnology, you can answer it. Like for space technology, satellites are used to find agroclimatic zone and which areas are suitable for which crop, that you can use. Biotechnology, you can use like we have this resistant crops, for example, this weed resistant crops, etc. are there. Then enriching crops like vitamin A or such kind of added value crops are there. So biotechnology helps you. Then as we discussed in the previous question, technologies like micro irrigation will help in cross diversification. So these kind of technology, you have to diversify it, like from space technology to biotechnology, you can mention and link it with crop diversification. So the second part of the question, more mark you will get when you diverse the more sectors to crop diversification. So that's it. Now question number 15. What are the research and development achievements in applied biotechnology, and how will these achievements help to uplift the poorest section of the society? The first part is very direct question, which is current affairs linked, because in the pandemic time, we know that biotechnology played a very important role. But here, what are the research and development achievements in applied biotechnology? You have to mention the achievements of applied biotechnology in various fields. It's not just health, from agriculture, in industry, in waste management, in energy production, in health. So in all sectors, this applied biotechnology has been used, and include 111 examples for each sectors. So that will complete your answer in the first section. And try to include examples from the international level as well as the Indian level. If you include all examples from United States, it feels like that India is lagging behind in applied biotech. So we can have our own examples also in the biotechnology. Second thing is, how will these achievements help to uplift the poorest section of the society? Poorest section, like how this is going to apply, like for example, the vaccine development in our country, actually it helped in poorest section. And in agriculture, as we just mentioned, like crop diversification, it will improve the income of farmers. In the industry, in the waste management, it will improve the like the health of the poorest section. So this is how the upliftment of poorest section of the society happens. Again, here you have to categorize the answer, like how it improved the health of the poor people, how it improved the income of the poor people, how it improved the life quality of the poor people. So this so similar line, you have to diversify the points, like how this applied biotechnology improved the health. Again, this is a quite expected question. There is no twist and turns. We can answer it well. Now question number 16. The Nobel Prize in Physics of 2014 was jointly awarded to Akasaki, Amano and Nakamura for the invention of blue LEDs in 1990s. How was this invention impacted the everyday life of human being? I believe that this is one of the questions having some moderate difficulty, but the first statement is actually just to create panic among the aspirants only, because even if we know that blue LED is invented by these people or not, that is not going to alter your answer. The question is how this invention impacted everyday life. Because blue LED was there, LEDs are there in the news for some time because of the energy conservation, environmental activities, and science and technology development. And there are many government programs to distribute LED lights to every houses to improve the energy efficiency and energy saving. So in that context, blue LEDs are semiconductors or diodes which emit lights. The specialities of blue LEDs, they are very energy efficient. Like they use very less amount of power and with energy or electricity, and they work in very high efficiency. And these are used in many LED displays, our indicators, and also in LCD TVs and all. The backlight is actually provided by this blue LED. Some disadvantages are there, but this is not mentioned in this question. But so you have to mention how this invention impacted everyday life of human being. It improved the energy efficiency. It improved the development of gadgets. It improved the technological development wherever LEDs are used. So that is the kind of answer you have to give. But the issue is, whenever the candidate read this question, like Nobel Prize in 2014, oh, I don't know anything about the current affairs that happened in 2014, that kind of panic should not come. You can peacefully answer this question because the first statement is just to distract your attention from the answer and don't jump into that pit. So you can mention about the advantages of blue LED and how it is going to impact our human. In the impact at the everyday life of human, I think you can mention about the disadvantages also. Like for example, if the LED devices are damaged, how it is going to recycle and how the e-waste is going to manage. That is also an issue that we are going to face in near future. Now we can go to the question number 17. Describe the major outcomes of the 26th session of Conference of Party COP to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC. What are the commitments made by India in the conference? Again, this is a second question related to COP26 because that much importance is there for the session, and every aspirant knows that one or two questions will come in the mains examination. So most of the people might be prepared for this. Describe the major outcome. I think most of the newspapers covered the major outcome of the 26th session and India's commitment also during November and December time, and most of the newspaper wrote many editorials in favors and criticism of COP26 and India's commitment also. So I think there won't be any content-wise issue for the candidates, but the thing is how you structurally mentioning these because there are many major outcomes, but those who are very important should come in the top of your answers. Vague and unspecific outcomes should be in the bottom of the answer, or you can skip that also. But the major outcome, like for example, climate equity monitor, global methane pledge, these kind of questions, carbon neutrality by 2070, these kind of important topics or important outcomes should come in the top of your answer. Otherwise, the examiner may not look into your important topics. And what are the commitments made by India? I think there are some 5-point commitment which was made by the Honorable Prime Minister of India in the meeting. And like Panjamrad or something they are saying, and these 5 points should be mentioned, and those 5 points are very important. I think most of the candidates know. So it's a direct question. Question number 18, describe the various causes and effects of landslides. Mention the important components of the National Landslide Risk Management Strategy. Again, a question from disaster management. Various causes and effects of landslides. It's a very direct question. Everyone will know that. Those who read this disaster management topics, like causes like human induced and natural causes are there, and effects of landslide. Again, you can draw a map where which various part of India which is prominent for landslides. The second question is the important one. Mention the important component of National Landslide Risk Management Strategy. There is a National Landslide Risk Management Strategy, and one guideline is also there. Like they made a national level task force, and they are preparing a landslide hazard map for the entire India. And then there is landslide monitoring and early warning system is installing, then capacity building at the local level. Similar to our coastal regulation zones, a mountain zone regulations and policies are also coming up, which was mentioned in the same strategy guideline. And some SPV, special purpose vehicle for landslide management and mitigation, is also mentioned. These are the points. So I think that was there in the recent current affairs. That's why it was asked. So again, it's a direct question. Those points, I think you can fill the answer sheet with some vague point also, but if you are specifically mentioned those good points, I think you will fetch more marks. And the second last question, question number 19, analyze the multidimensional challenges posed by the external state and non-state actors to the internal security of India. Also discuss measures required to be taken to combat these threats. So this is again internal security question. External state and non-state actors. So you can start like what is the difference between external state and non-state. External state is the agencies or agents which are backed by some state. For example, China and Pakistan is an external state that is challenging our. Non-state actors is like those who do not back by any sovereign country. For example, the terrorists or the insurgents or trafficking groups or human trafficking group. These are all non-state actors. So multi-dimensional challenges, you can mention like various challenges. It is not just about the security of India, but as I mentioned, you have to mention about insurgency, you have to mention about terrorism, you have to mention about human trafficking, drug trafficking, cyber terrorism, then counterfeit currency and money laundering. So all these things should be mentioned. That is a multi-dimensional challenges. and discuss measures required to be taken in this. I think various measures that is taken. This is actually a repetition of question, kind of repetition of some topic, because earlier also we mentioned like how we can measure these threats. So again, measures like long-term, short-term measures can be issued, and this is a general question, and you can answer that. The last question, the 20th question, is analyze the complexity and intensity of terrorism, its causes, linkages, and obnoxious nexus. Also suggest measures required to be taken to eradicate the menace of terrorism. This is a very deep and very general question. Like even you can't confine your answer to 250 words. Even you can write an essay on this. So, but the key or the crux of this question is how you are going to limit your topics or content into 250 words. So you have to mention about the complexity of terrorism, its causes like political causes, economic causes, developmental causes, religious causes, cultural causes, all these things. Linkages and nexus between terrorist group, as we mentioned in the previous question, with state actors and non-state actors. And suggest the measure. Again, it's a kind of repetition, the previous one and this one, like same questions have been asked, like measures to combat this threat long term, from the short term strategy like using force like police or army, to a long term strategy like pro development, pro people, democratic development, and international agreements. So this is the kind of flow of answer from the short term aggressive measures to a long-term very peaceful measure. We need to soft power and long-term measures we need to mention. So I think the 19th and 20th question, second part is actually kind of repetition, but we need to limit the key is we need to limit all those things in 250 words, because this is a last question. It's a very deep and very general question. So these are the 20 questions of GS paper 3, and I think most of the questions are direct. There is no unexpected questions were asked. I think there is no need to skip any question completely. If we look into the entire question, I think internal security, disaster management, and environment are getting more and more prominence in this question paper, along with the economy. So, and most of the questions are linked with current affairs, but at the same time, some static knowledge is needed for the candidate. So, if you are completely focusing on newspaper, you can't answer all the question. If you are skipping the newspaper also, you can't answer all the questions. So it is a balanced type of question paper where you need to prepare from the static portion and also the current affairs portion. So I think that's how UPSC balances between the first time mains writing candidates and the veterans. So that equity and equality is actually balanced by the UPSC among candidates. I think that's about the GS paper 3 of 2021 analysis. Thank you.
Okay, we have like 3 questions for you. Like these are questions collected from the aspirants. So these 3 questions, one is like you talked about the importance of sticking to the word limit. So is there anything else that, the first timers should be careful about the instructions of the paper? Because, it takes a lot of time. Time management is very, very important. So how important is it to understand the instructions of the paper?
Yeah, the instruction, like the most important thing is the word limit and the time limit. Time management is the most important part you have to, every candidate has to understand. Otherwise, there is not much instructions are there in the paper, like technical instructions are very less. But the word limit and space limit, because for the 10-mark question, we will get only 2 pages. 15-mark, we will get 3 pages. So whatever you write, whatever you know has to limit within that space limit. That is very, very important. And as I said previously, if your answer looks crowded, the examiner may feel like that this candidate crossed the word limit. It may or may not be, but always I would say my personal opinion is like this paper valuation of mains is actually always subjective. It depends upon the examiner a lot. So, and the marks also, if you are getting, that depend on the examiner a lot. So that space limit and time, the word limit, space limit, and time limit, these 3 things are very crucial for any mains paper. So whenever you start preparing, whenever you start answer right question, you have to adjust your time limit, space limit, and word limit. So when you start writing mock exams and you start writing mock answers, you have to go with this. Because when I start preparing, I was like, for example, for a 10-mark question, you will only get a 7 minute, around 7 to 8 minutes. minutes maximum. For a 15 mark question, you will get 10, 11 minutes. So whenever you start answers, you should keep an eye on your watch that I am completing this question within this time limit only, because skipping a question is very, very create so much of damage, because completely skipping a 10 mark or a 15 mark question will lose a chance to get some decent mark for that answer. So it will bring your chances down. So you don't need to skip any of questions. For that, time management is very important.
Is regarding one of the questions from paper 2. This is like, how do we answer sensitive questions? So there is one particular question. It's regarding the Human Rights Commission. Should I open it, sir?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Question number 12. Though the Human Rights Commission have contributed immensely to the protection of human rights in India, yet they fail to assert themselves against the mighty and powerful, analyzing the structural and practical limitations such as remedial measures. So how should one answer such a question?
We always say that we need to take a diplomatic stand in such kind of question, but the thing is, always the candidates ask whether we can criticize government in our answers. But again, this is a personal opinion. We don't have a guideline or strict guidebook for this particular thing. My personal opinion is we can criticize. There is no doubt regarding that. We can criticize. Previously also such kind of questions were there, like for example at my time some question regarding the constitution and secularism, which was controversial at that time. So some controversial question will come, but you can criticize government. But I always believe that when you criticize, when you say something criticizing, you have to be that criticizing point has to be supported by valid and relevant arguments. If you have valid and relevant arguments, this is like analyze their structural and practical limitation and suggest. So when you criticize, like you can say that yes, Human Rights Commission failed sometimes against the mighty and powerful. Give examples, give valid point to support it. If you don't have any valid point, it is better not to criticize. If you have valid point, it is always criticize. I always say that you can criticize, but not in a political way. Like political parties criticize each other. They might not have a valid point sometimes, but when we criticize, I mean, when the bureaucrat or any person who know the facts and knowledge criticize, the thing is, we need to have a valid point to substantiate. If you have that, you can criticize, no issue in that.
One answer, philosophical questions and questions related to ethics. What are to be noted by answering such questions?
Philosophical questions like ethics paper.
Yeah, ethics paper.
Okay, philosophical question, it is always, it is a discretion of the candidate to write. Most of the time, when philosophical question comes, there will be some, like for me, I always linked it to my life or to the world that is currently going on. So when we connect this philosophical question to the current world, the examiner can also catch that particular thing. Like, yes, these things are there. For example, if we are describing the world some 1,000 or 2,000 years back, we may not get that connect. Like if some Archimedes or some Plato said something, and if we are mentioning the same thing at that period, we may not get the emotional or cognitive connect to that. But if we are connecting that to current world or our life, we will get more connect. So that's what I did. So philosophical question, I think those who study philosophy, for example, sociology, etc., they will get an edge over others. For example, for a person like me who took science as a science subject as optional. But otherwise, there is no need to worry much. Usually the questions are like philosophy and connected to the real world or something, or analyze as per today world or something like that will be the question. So it is always better to connect it to that. And the thing is, don't bluff. Don't write something vague, and don't try to fill the space. If you don't know that particular answer, if you know, write properly. And if you know only 1 page or 1.5 page, that's fine. But there's no need to fill up the space and make the answer too boring. That is one advice that I take.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell them? We could wind up after that.
Okay. So regarding the, for example, now next UPSC cycle is coming up and the interviews also pending for the candidates who are watching this, I think the interview candidates may not watch this, but for them, all the very best for their interview. Prepare well, and interview is like a one-time experience you always will get. So as I previously said, like it is a personality test, not an interview, where your personality is assessed. So be cool, be yourself, and present yourself to the interview board. And those who are preparing for the next year, I mean 2022 prelims, it is also about the climax of the preparation for the prelims. I think if the pandemic allows, the prelims will happen in the right time itself. So again, what I can give as an advice is limit the materials and resources and do maximum revisions as possible. That's the one advice that I always give. And the second thing is stick to that motivation level, or whatever your dream or passion or whatever thing is there, stick to that motivation level. And third thing is write as much as possible, like mock test and the questions, work out more questions. So that way you will get to know that what are the mistakes you can hopefully commit in the exam, and you can correct it beforehand. So these are the three things that I can tell. So for those who are waiting for the personality test call, and those who are waiting for the next prelims, all the very best for all of them.